Have you ever watched a film and immediately recognised the style of the director? Chances are you've watched a film created by an auteur. Back in the early 20th century, films were credited to the actors, producers, or the studios who created them. But when auteur theory came about in the 1950s, this power shifted to the directors. Auteur theory is the idea that the director is the author or main creative force behind a film. Although it might seem strange to call the director the author, as in most cases they didn't write the film, due to the fact that the director helps every department to execute the script, they are given the credit of creating the film. Not every director can be called an auteur. An auteur shapes every part of the film, and you can see their influence in every single detail. Perhaps the greatest example of this would be the miraculously consistent and beautiful style of Wes Anderson, but more on him later. Auteur theory as we know it today started back in the 50s in the French film magazine Cahiers du Cinéma, roughly translating to Notes on Cinema. In a 1954 edition of the publication, François Truffaut wrote an article about the awful state of French films at the time. He argued that American films and their directors were far superior and stated Alfred Hitchcock as a prime example of a great director. Truffaut famously claimed that there are no good or bad films, only good or bad directors. Since then, auteur theory has developed and a set of rules have been compiled to help sort auteurs from other directors. The basic rules of auteur theory are as follows. Firstly, a director's work must display basic competency. They must be a skilled director and know how to put together a film that is technically sound. Next, the director must have a signature style with recurring characteristics clearly identifiable over several of their films, whether that's visually or in narrative structure. Finally, the director's work must have interior meaning. One should be able to see the director's soul come through in the film and recognise where the director has gone above and beyond to make sure their film is made in the way they want. As I said earlier, Wes Anderson is the definition of an auteur in my opinion. Watching just 10 minutes of any one of his films should prove his competency as a director, but if not, you only need to look at the 77 wins and 200 nominations his films have been awarded at film festivals and ceremonies to understand the skill and success of Wes Anderson as a director. His style can instantly be recognised in the masterful cinematography, plot, characters and production design of his films. Anderson's films often look like two-dimensional storybook pages due to the long lateral tracking shots which allow the audience to see every detail put into a shot and really appreciate the world he has imagined and created for its characters. Another stylistic element that stands out in Anderson's work is the symmetry in his frames. You can take almost any frame from one of his films, split it into quadrants and find perfectly balanced symmetry. This creates a sense of conformity and reason in the film. Everything feels as though it is in the right place. His colour palettes aim to establish mood and tone, like in Fantastic Mr. Fox, where the orange and yellow tones create a cosy and homely atmosphere. They can also be used to draw the audience's attention to a certain subject and make them stand out in the frame. Anderson's characters are unique. His stories are often from the perspective of flawed, misfit teenagers. The adults tend to act like children, and the children act like adults. This juxtaposition allows for comedic plot elements like Sam painting nudes in Moonrise Kingdom. The sets are full of character themselves, and each and every prop feels intentionally placed to align with the story or the character. It's through these details that we can see how much creative control Anderson has had over his films, and how much he must have pushed to get certain elements included in the film. You see, an Anderson film couldn't be made in a week. Careful and meticulous planning has clearly happened to make his ideas a reality. Without a doubt, Wes Anderson meets the standards of an auteur director and will go down in history as one of the most talented and creative directors of the 21st century.